To another edition of Ask Michael Ehline. This is where I teach people the law in an
Harbor
unorthodox
Freight knows skill is important because on any given day,
case
we're
law
all
briefs, but it's
mechanics,
all about exposing the
carpenters.
Leviathan and its instrumentalities and taking back your rights. Know the law and mean to keep it well. Come here to learn from an expert to know your right. Make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to save, because we never know when the thought police are going to take down this channel. All right, everybody. So I just wanted to sort of share with you my experiences about what happened today, and I appreciate everybody showing up. This will be a quick one. So I appeared at the Nevada courthouse with about 9 other people as a character witness to support Chille. And I just want to make sure everybody can hear me. Everybody give me a bunch of OTVOs and a bunch of ones if you can hear me. Just give me a bunch of ones so I know you hear me. All right. So we show up. I see Let's OTVO. I say hi. By the way, the guy's like 10 feet tall. The guy's a giant. I was like, whoa, pro basketball player. All right, cool. So you hear me. So I show up over there, and we're waiting in the hallway next to Division 8, and the bailiff calls people, and people with active cases only come to the podium. So there's a podium outside. He calls them. I approached the podium after all those people were allowed into the courtroom, and I said, I'm here as a character witness. I'm also an out-of-state attorney. And he said, what case? And I said, Chille DeCastro. And I said, by the way, there's a bunch of other character witnesses, many of whom signed the character reference letters on his behalf. And since they weren't signed as part of the original motion, we decided we would show up just in case the court wants us to authenticate them. So I'm just trying to guide you through what happened. And the court said the case has already been called and the motion was denied. It was the first case on the docket. So just so everybody knows, what's going on, none of the witnesses or the people who showed up to support Chille were allowed in the courtroom, or at least it was made to appear as though only people with active cases were allowed in the courtroom, and we were not allowed to go in. So I met with the witnesses over at the Starbucks. We hung out for a while and talked about shooting the breeze and ways that we can try to help Chille. And I just wanted to let you know, because people are blowing up my cell phone and texting me. And so everybody know, I'm a personal injury attorney. Everything that I'm doing here is for a non-commercial purpose. I don't do, I rarely do criminal defense. I'm doing this because I'm trying to help Chille, because I think there was an injustice here, and in this particular instance. So I just want everybody to know that. So I don't really have much skin in the game here. I do car accidents and things like that. So I'm not really, this isn't like doing anything to help my business. And it takes a lot of my free time. So I just want you all to know I appreciate you at least supporting me and stuff like that. And hopefully you'll be there to support me and my family someday if we ever have a problem. That's what main reason why I try to help people out, is because I always like to pay it forward. So I'm just going to share with you what we know happened in court based upon the video evidence. So I'm just going to play this for you, and we'll talk about it once it's done running.
Please be seated. Come to order.
All right, Jose DeCastro, 23CR013015.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Christopher on behalf of Mr. DeCastro. He's present to address you.
Nice to see you, Chris. Good morning.
Good morning, Agnes Patel from the State Farm number 11064.
All right, this is your motion.
Yes, Your Honor. First of all, I've had a chance to watch the video of the trial. I watched Mr. DeCastro come into the courtroom in an extraordinarily disrespectful fashion and refer to the marshal in the most inappropriate way. I then saw some other things that I consider very poor in the courtroom. And Mr. DeCastro was convicted. He is given 6 months in jail. One thing I know he's going to do today is, for no other purpose, no matter what your ruling is, he wants to say sorry. I've asked him if he'd say sorry to the court. I understand that you may see it as that he should have apologized to the marshal. I don't see the marshal in here that he did this. One thing I would note for the court is that the issues that I saw seem to be significant constitutional issues. The court addressed it, but What I did notice is that this should have been really briefed beforehand on First Amendment issues, so the court could have had that. That's no fault of, I think it just should have been done beforehand. I also noticed that at time of sentencing, the state asked for a suspended sentence, but Mr. Castro just pushed it. And I see reasonably agitated and irritated the court into causing a sentence that is now 6 months. This man, from what I can tell, Your Honor, has no prior felony convictions whatsoever. I'm doing that upon information and belief. I haven't run the scope. I know the state could do that, but I don't see that he has any felony convictions. He's made his appearances, and I think the time in jail has been shocking to him. I know it has, because I can tell the reaction of the calls every day and how difficult it is for him. I think he pushed this and is learning a very, very difficult lesson in life. I would ask the court to consider, based upon his ties to the community, sister here, nephew, he has a whole bunch of people who wanted to come to court, which I suggested maybe a very, if they're going to come here, be respectful and mindful of what's already occurred in this court. But what I asked the court to do, given his lack of any serious criminal history, his remorse for his behavior in this courtroom during that trial, and the fact that the state at the time did not want jail time, is I'd ask for an appeal bond, Your Honor, so that the issue can be, these issues can be properly raised. And so with that, Your Honor, I asked for an OR. I would just say a reasonable bail. I would suggest that since he came to the trial, since he already has gotten a taste of what inappropriate behavior in a courtroom looks like and feels like, I would ask for.
So I just want to just really quick stop this really fast. So I just want you to know that I've made several efforts to contact the appellate lawyer's office to make sure that he knew that we would be there. And nobody's ever reached out to me, and we were all waiting in the hallway, and the bailiff allowed everybody in the courtroom except only people with active cases. So by the time the line was ended and I had an opportunity to approach the bailiff to say, hey, there's a bunch of witnesses here for this case, he said, oh, that case was already called. So basically it appears the case was called while they were still letting people in with active cases. So there was no way that any of us could have gone in to support Chille. He never saw any of us or anything like that. So all you people who seem to have a hard time understanding basic English or reading or hearing, no one showed up late. We were all there about an hour early, and we were there to support Chille as character witnesses. So I don't appreciate all the BS twisting of my statements around and the assumptions of facts that aren't in evidence. No one ever said that we showed up late. We were all there early. We were there to support Chille. We were not allowed into the courtroom. At least the bailiff gave the appearance that we weren't allowed into the courtroom, at least until the hearing was over. And I've seen this done in court cases in California. So I'm going to go ahead and play the rest of this video for you.
For a bail in the amount of $10,000 or $20,000, appeal bond in the amount of $10,000 or $20,000. With that, Your Honor, I submit.
Your Honor, may I respond orally? Typically, pursuant to the Nevada rules of criminal practice, the state has 10 days to file an opposition, but this was placed on calendar very quickly. So I would ask for leave of the court to answer orally.
Okay.
Your Honor, I'm in receipt of Mr. Orum's motion for bail or any alternative for his own recognizance release. I would note that NRS 178.488 does make it discretionary upon this court whether you would allow bail pending.
So just really quick, here, let me just really quick here. So remember the DA originally recommended no jail time for Chille at all. So now she's, done a complete reversal. So look to see the DA probably running for any vacant judgeships in the near future. This is kind of how you make your name, right? You support the great Leviathan. If I was the district attorney, I would have supported letting Chille out. But that's just me, because I seek justice before I seek favor. That's just my approach. So let's go and just finish it up here.
Appeal. Mr. DeCastro, there has been a briefing schedule set before Judge Levitt in district court on the appeal. but it's not set to be heard until July. It's discretionary, Your Honor, as with a lot of the bail settings in Nevada, it's discretionary. And the state would oppose this court setting a bail at this point.
So the state opposes letting him have bail. You look at him; he's lost probably 20 pounds. He's surviving off of like peanut butter. The food they give you in jail is horrific. It is torture. I mean, Gitmo's got nothing on county jail. Let's take a look at the rest of this video.
There seems to be this assumption that this court sentenced Mr. DeCastro to 6 months in the Clark County Detention Center just because of his conduct or his inappropriate conduct in court. I would venture to say that Your Honor presided over the trial where you found guilt beyond a reasonable doubt for both the obstructing a police officer and resisting a police officer.
Hi, I'm Nicole Hockley from Sandy Hook Promise. I know this is hard
So obviously we don't want to watch this. Let me just really quick see if
to
I can
hear.
get out of this.
You saw his conduct in the body worn camera by the officer. And I would venture to say, and I would submit to the court, that the 6-month sentence that you imposed isn't simply for his behavior in court or his behavior to your marshals, but that it is an appropriate sentence placed upon the defendant by the court due to the charges and the evidence that you saw during trial.
Yeah, it was until it wasn't, and we know that the evidence that we all saw is that Chille was at least 21 foot away from the officer originally. We know that when the officer told him to back up, that he did, but that he just popped off, and that the officer closed the distance. We also know that if you saw my video yesterday about the so-called 21-foot rule, it's not a rule; it's a principle that's based upon when it's justifiable for an officer to shoot an assailant. And anything outside the 21-foot radius is considered to be probably a problem for the officer if he wants to escape an unjustifiable homicide or excessive force allegation. So that 21-foot rule, and by the way, modern close quarter battle training and classes that I've been in, that 21-foot rule can be obviated by proper tactics. Movement is your friend. If you move and it's not a linear type of a battle, the 21-foot rule or principle isn't really that big of a deal. So we know that this case is based upon evidence that was excluded. So the exculpatory evidence, his webcam footage clearly showed, as we showed yesterday, that the officer had already dismissed the traffic stop victim, who was there for at least 5 minutes already. So overstepped the bounds of the stop to begin with and excused her. At that point, there was no reason to talk to Chille at all. This 21-foot thing is not the law. It's just something that is used by the courts to justify, in my opinion, an unjust sentence. Let's go ahead and finish this.
There's also been this claim that Mr. DeCastro was stayed trouble-free for most of his life. I would venture to say, yes, he does not have felony convictions. He does not have gross misdemeanor convictions, but he does have pretty consistent contact with law enforcement. He does have a warrant out of Ohio.
Oh, so let's talk about that. So this is a big thing. So for years, this is how the state of California justified not giving people concealed carry permits. So people who wanted to defend their families, if they ever called 911, let's call the contact. So the sheriffs, because they only would give out permits pretty much to people who donated money to their political campaigns and, famous people, people who can potentially help them on their political travels ladder, right? Because that's how it works, right? People who, support the politicians support those people with money, right? But people like you and I, oh, you had a contact, so you can't get your firearm. So notice how the DA uses the word contact like it's this horrible thing. And of course, she does talk about out-of-state warrants, and I do understand that. But if you understand Ironton and you understand what's really going on, what really should be happening is the FBI should be investigating Ironton, because the stuff that we know about Ironton and the familial relationships and the nepotism and all the other things that are going on over there, that fiefdom that they have over there, I believe should be investigated. And that's the real injustice, is that people like Chille go and expose it and they try to silence them. And we see that. I think just today, Long Island Audits was also arrested, and they're just mass arresting people. They're using that NIH report that says that people who are sovereign citizens, people who support the Second Amendment, people who support legal immigration, are basically crazy people. And so that's what's going on. Let's just go ahead and finish this up.
For a trespass. And I understand that's a piddly misdemeanor, however, it was a warrant status. And he has a pending case in Las Vegas Justice Court for the very same offenses that the court heard during the trial here. As to the claim that, you know, hey, there were issues before trial, and there should have been First Amendment issues raised or briefed prior to, Your Honor, defense counsel was able to argue the First Amendment defense. Your Honor heard these arguments both during the trial and during closing arguments. Mr. DeCastro, when he took the stand, raised them as a defense, but Your Honor held, after listening to all of the evidence and applying the law, or found him guilty regardless. This was not a First Amendment issue. The state stands by that. This was simply the defendant breaking the law. And he was sentenced accordingly for his behavior. It was a conduct, it was a consequence, an appropriate sentence imposed by the court to the defendant. And so we would oppose any kind of change or any kind of bail setting or an OR at this point. This is not a pretrial detention. This is not a pretrial, as Valdez Jimenez was cited also in defense counsel's motion. Valdez Jimenez stands for pretrial detention. Mr. DeCastro is no longer cloaked with the presumption of innocence. He has been found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt by Your Honor. And so at this point, I would ask that the 6 months sentence that you imposed stand and that he remain in custody.
Mayor.
Can I ask the interpreter to quit reading? Thank you.
Yes.
Recordings just got better.
Hold on one second. We
Hey,
got
it's
these
Dana
dumb
from
little
Stringer.
skip
I'm
things
so
we gotta
excited to
do.
announce that local recordings are now available on
One second,
StreamYard.
guys.
Have you ever done
That bad boy.
So the interpreter over there, yeah, Merrick speaking. Oh,
All right, I was talking about
Oh,
the
I'm sorry.
interpreter. Yeah, go ahead.
Your Honor, the statute we cited is, in fact, just discretionary to you to determine on appeal, pending appeal, whether a bit of appeal bond can be issued. I hear the state, I recognize that you found him guilty. I'm not trying to in any way argue that. On appeal, there are legitimate issues. The court can see that, you know, there are some First Amendment issues just from watching the video, things that a court could consider on appeal. And so that's the only basis I'm bringing that up on. But given the fact that I think he really is contrite for what he's done.
I disagree. Have you watched the videos that have been posted since he's been incarcerated?
I'm in a murder trial.
Okay, so
I had a chance.
So he's gonna apologize to me in a minute, but that's not what he's saying.
But wait a minute. So hold on a minute. So she's saying, have you seen the new videos since he's been put in jail? Well, what videos is she talking about? Other people who are posting videos in support of him, because he's not posting any videos. So what is she talking about? Is she punishing him? Is this a guilty by association argument? I've listened to his calls from the jail, and he feels that an injustice has been committed against him. You know, put it in the comments. What do you think is going on here? That's a little confusing to me. Tell me, what do you think about that? So she's saying, have you seen the videos? What videos is she talking about? What they put on Fox News, what they put on CNN? Put it in the comments if you have any idea what she's talking about. I'm confused.
On what he's publishing online in his phone calls from the jail. That's not what he's saying at all.
Okay, so
And are you aware?
hold on a
that-
minute. So what is Chille publishing online? I'm very confused. How can he publish things online when he's in jail? Now, I'm totally confused about that. Put it in the comments if you can help me understand that. Anybody? Okay, here we go.
He has a trial pending in Las Vegas Municipal Court. He has a case pending in Good Springs Justice Court, where he continues to manufacture situations where he'll get arrested.
Okay, so you just heard that. So basically, it sounds like the court has already convicted him in this other case, saying that he manufactures things. That sounds just like the San Bernardino County Sheriff, right? They're manufacturing things. They're engaged in misinformation. People who cop watch are engaged in Notice how we have this big move by the corporate deep state to try and censor information. Only the official state narrative is real information, and anyone else who does their own independent research, unless they went to Harvard or, one of these academic institutions, that their political party donates a bunch of money to. Only that is the valid information. So just have a good listen and tell me what you think about what the judge is saying. Let's hear some more.
Your Honor, I recognize that's what he was sort of doing for a living, and this is, he's now being incarcerated.
Right.
And
So what he's saying in the couple of weeks since he's been incarcerated, when he calls from the jail and publishes them on his website, is not what he's about to say to me. Okay? So he's
Okay, so publishing on his website. So Chille does have a website. I've not seen anything that Chille's published on his website that talks about any of this other than a free Chille t-shirt. Now, I know there's a YouTube channel that Delete Laws, which is a separate business that also has other people who work for it besides Chille. So it would be the same thing as, I don't know, Fox News, one of the Fox News reporters posting something on the channel. I know that Brian from Here's the Deal has been running that channel off and on. So I just, I would object if I was the lawyer. I would just, I would object to the court's characterization that he's posting anything online, because he's not. So that's clearly a fallacious statement based upon the real facts as to what I know them to be.
going to apologize to me now, but that's not what he's doing publicly, okay?
yeah, sure, I hear that. I won't have him speak at this time, but I would still ask you to consider that there may be legitimate issues. I think there are for Judge Levitt to consider, and I think these are sort of issues of first impression. That was the other thing I saw, is that in the state of Nevada, I can't find any case law that specifically talks about this filming of police officers. What I would say to the court is I recognize that it's obnoxious behavior. That's what it appears to be. Whether it's protected is another thing that I think higher courts need to look at. But I can see if the court has already made up the court's mind.
Well, I want to be clear. I did not have a problem with him filming, and I said that when I sentenced him. That was not the issue. It was the safety issues that he created with his behavior. And I also did not sentence.
Okay, so everybody, I don't understand what any of that means. The officer already admitted that Chille didn't pose a threat to him. And we could all see any juror, if a lawyer would have entered his videotaped evidence into evidence, any juror would have clearly seen that Chille was backing up, despite the fact that his First Amendment rights to record were being interfered with. The whole 21-foot rule has been dispelled on multiple times. It's mentioned in a depublished Ninth Circuit case. In other words, it's not valid law. It never was valid law. And it was based upon someone with a knife charging an officer, and when would be the appropriate time for the officer to double tap that person's center mass. It has absolutely nothing to do with this case. There's no law about officer safety that says that she has the right to lock him up because of this rule, this rule that's not law. What should have happened is the totality of the circumstances should have been taken into consideration. And what should have happened is there's a compelling state interest in certain activities, and there's a compelling public interest in others, and that a balancing test must be conducted. In here, we have a private parking lot. We have a traffic stop that was already ended. There was no reason to extend the stop other than to try and shield the officer with qualified immunity, in my opinion. And that's based upon looking at it from a California lawyer's perspective. Again, everything I tell you is based upon my understanding of the law as a Texas and California lawyer. And I am not a Nevada attorney, so I can only talk about general principles. But had this happened in another jurisdiction where I'm licensed, this is how I would adjudicate and judge this particular action. So let's go ahead and see if there's any more to talk about here.
Him because of his ridiculous behavior in court. That wasn't why I sentenced him to jail. I sentenced him because I found him guilty beyond reasonable doubt, and I thought that was the appropriate sentence. I could have given him 180 days on each count and ran it consecutive for a year.
Well, the problem with that argument is she could have, but since in a misdemeanor case, you're only supposed to get up to 180 days max. That would have been a really strong appeal. And she's a smart judge. I mean, she knew that. She knew when she had him in there, if she put him in for 180, she could argue that it was mid-range. And that's just a smart judge. I've worked for plenty of judges. I know how it works. Let's go through the rest of this.
In jail, but I didn't. And his behavior was unacceptable in court, but that's not what I sentenced him for. I did not sentence him for his behavior in court. I sentenced him for his behavior for the 2 charges that he faced.
Yes, sure.
All right, so your motion is denied. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so you kind of get the idea. Let me roll it back so we can at least have something on the screen to look at. All right. So this will be a faster one than normal. I have some calls that I've got to make. I actually, do have to run my business. But okay. So Mikey B says habeas corpus. Okay, so there might be some valid grounds for some kind of an emergency action here. But I'll be honest, based upon the demeanor of the appellate lawyer, I just don't see that happening. I just got to tell you, me as a lawyer, I always try to treat everything with a sense of urgency, because I always assume that person could have been my uncle or my cousin or my aunt. And that's why I don't take on a lot of cases, because it absolutely wears me out, and it causes problems, with my wife and I too, because, that's just my mentality. But so when I don't see that happening, I lose a lot of confidence, and I don't see any sense of urgency to try and do any of those things. Maybe if we can throw another 30 grand at it, we might have another half-hearted attempt to argue a motion. But based on what I'm seeing, I'm not impressed. Put it in the comments if you're not impressed. And I guess everybody try and put yourself in his shoes. The guy's lost a ton of weight. Based upon the real evidence, he had the right to record. He was backing up. He was following the officer's unjust commands. Those were not just commands. The stop was already over. This is a situation where we have law enforcement officers, starting with the FBI and the DOJ, using data they're culling from other quasi-governmental partnerships, from the ADL and from Southern Poverty Law Center and these other non-government organizations who now are basically instrumentalities of the government, are targeting people who believe in free speech, people who believe in the Second Amendment, and they're trying to bunch them all in as crazy people, crazy sovereign citizens. And that's happening all over the place. And we just saw Long Island just get arrested, who's probably the most civil auditor I've ever seen. For that guy to get arrested, you really had to have a zealous LEO on that one. So everybody keep in mind and learn a lesson from this whole thing that happened. Your jail calls are recorded. If the cops and the court don't like you, you are in big trouble if you say bad things about them or things they could construe as being bad. I do note, however, the judge was not able to point out anything in isolation that he did or said. She was not able to lay a proper foundation that he was the one even posting this on his channel. And I just felt that it was really unfair. And I feel like if I had been there as his lawyer, I would have argued all those salient points to create a record, because right now I just see a really flimsy record, and I see more of a record in favor of ineffective assistance of counsel than I do of a record in favor of the actual merits of his case. And that's deafeningly saddening to me, that he spent so much time to get it all on tape and it wasn't entered into evidence. He's actually arguing case law to the officer, and he was correct in his arguments. And why isn't any of that even, instead they're trying to paint him like a wild, crazy person. So I'm going to look at your comments here in the sidebar and I'll try to answer them. Okay. So first of all, give me a bunch of OTVOs. Give me a bunch of ones if you support Chille. And, I was able to meet with one of his family members also, just so you know, and I'm going to try to work with them to try to help out as best as I can. So at least we know that his dog has somebody looking after him. Yeah, OTVO, I love it. Let me see here. Internet God, you're hyperbolic. Did he run up? Was he screaming like a lunatic? Okay. All right. So, and as we discussed yesterday in yesterday's live stream, but Chille has the right to run up and yell and scream. He has the right to interfere, even if his intent is to interfere, as long as it's not physical. That's what we know that the federal courts say. That's what the case law says from the federal courts. Now, how does that jibe with the resisting, obstructing, delaying stuff? Well, we know that all those things are a physical act. And so we have a lot of double speak, a lot of vague and ambiguous statements like officer safety, just a lot of weird stuff that really doesn't pan out. And that's why you find a lot of these cases get reversed on appeal. But that doesn't really help our man because he'll be stuck in there for at least 6 months. A lot of people are saying good behavior. Put it in the comments if you think that they're going to find some kind of an infraction, no matter what it is, no matter how slight, to prevent him from getting good behavior, that the jailers or whatnot. Put it in the comments if you think that's going to happen. I hear a lot of that kind of stuff happening with a lot of my former clients who've been in prison wrongfully, and eventually we got them out. And yeah, it does take forever and it takes its toll. It really destroys the women of the family. It destroys the mothers and the sisters and the daughters. The guys tend to, not as bad, but it ruins people. And just imagine if you had someone falsely in prison in your family and now they're not there. Just imagine how that would make you feel. And we know from the evidence here that this was an unjust, in my opinion, conviction had this trial been conducted in Texas or California. So now we have a comment here. Free Country says that the judge is going to make sure that Chille doesn't get his good time. I don't know if that's true. I don't know the judge. I just know the system. And I know that political animals, they get promotions and they get reelected and higher office by making that, popular conviction, so if you have like an NFL star, you want to make sure you stay on that docket as the judge, so you can get that media attention, so you can get your next office and make yourself look good. So something you want to think about. Now here it said, why did Chille use a public defender? Integrity Now News, if you have any information that Michael Nee is a public defender, please send it because that could be false advertising, because on his website it says he's a private lawyer. So, but if he's a public defender, we need to definitely get law enforcement involved because we don't want private attorneys advertising that they're public defenders. That could be catastrophic. So let's see here. What else? Says here, it doesn't pass the dark web sniff test. You are lying. I have seen all his charges. Okay. So we did hear the prosecutor admit that Chille had no felonies, right? So we know, like everybody, like these flamers in the comments always try to say, oh, he's a multi-convicted felon and all that. So at least now you have, evidence you can use for your next show or your next like Book of Mormon, when you go to argue apologetics with the deep state or these flamers that an official government agency admitted that there were no felonies. So that's a good thing. So let me see here. Let's see here. It says they came from the communist and I said nothing because I am not a communist. They came for the journalists. I said nothing. Well, that is true, Joshing. Joshing you. I love your name, Joshing. Hey, happy April Fools, Joshing you. That's cool. No, but that's true. So everybody, like, I'm getting a lot of hate mail. Oh, you support this crazy person. Guys, trust me. I support the least among us. And I'm not saying that he's the least among us, but I support those people who are the loudest squeaky nails because, like the original ACLU, before it became apparently allied with state government officials, the original ACLU supported those hippies and those people that were out there, even flag burners, people that were over the top. Supported that, but now they're supporting the BlackRock agenda. It looks like, where everything's hate speech. If you don't call someone by the right pronouns, you could be in prison. Basically, like the German and UK system, where they're flooding their country with people that hate them, and they're causing a lot of crimes and raping their women. And if you say anything about it, you could be jailed or thrown in prison. That's what the modern day Hobbesian theorists are trying to do in the United States. And I would say Hobbesians is characterized by these large multinational corporations who do business with evil countries like communist China. And they certainly, China doesn't like it when you exercise your free speech. And if these big multinational corporations and the NBA want to keep getting money from China, hey man, we have to change America. They shouldn't change for us, right? America should change for them. And that's the problem. We're trying to please people who are tyrants in pursuit of money. And now we have our entire political system involved in these public-private partnerships with these nonprofits, and they're giving money back and forth, and they basically taken over our country. And I want you people to be aware of that. And we'll talk about that in some future podcasts. And we'll talk about why they hate people like the Amish so much. And by the way, you won't find any transgenders or anything like that in the Amish society. But since Biden became president, 40% of public school females apparently identify as trans. So you can see that political agendas and being taught from K through college do have an effect on the populace, and they can definitely control the thoughts and opinions of the populace absent critical thinking and classical education. And we have another video that we did about how the Rockefellers took over our education system back in the day to make it more like the Prussian Prussian school system, because Prussia lost a war to Napoleon and swore that would never happen again. And of course, we know the Nazis modeled their military after the Prussians because they were the one military that would no longer retreat. So just think about that, guys. Pretty amazing stuff. Now, and then we have this moron here saying, great attorney can't even make it into courtroom on time. So we'll say it again. First of all, I'm a California attorney, so I was appearing in court about an hour early today with other witnesses to get on the stand and attest to Chille's character. And the bailiff called in only people with active cases. By the time that line had been called in and it was time for us to approach the podium, the bailiff informed me that Chille's case had already been called. So it was convenient, right? That the line to let people in basically ended right after Chille's case had been called and had been dismissed. So and then they let all the media in. We were standing there, like sitting there in amazement. They let all the people in with cameras. So next time, if you want to see Chille in court, try to get a media pass. Then you can go in there and at least look at them, because it looks like there's some kind of either an intentional or unintentional thing that they're doing to keep people out of the courtroom who could potentially offer support. And I certainly would have liked it for Chille if you could have seen me and all these people who showed up for him. That would have been really nice. Put in the comments if you think that would have been really cool, if Chille could have seen that people were there supporting him. That was really a disappointment for me. Now, let's just go down the list here. Nazism is still prevalent. So, that's really interesting you'd say that, Legalized, because I'm getting a lot of calls from parents who are fleeing California in droves. They're really worried about, they call it intersectionalism, which is basically critical race theory masked as another name. And basically what critical race theory does is it teaches that all white people are racist and evil and all non-white people are the oppressed. Very similar to the way the Nazis treated the Jews in World War II. In the public school system, they taught the kids that Jews were the oppressors and that the Germans were the oppressed. The only real difference is that the Jews were the minority, and in the United States, the whites are the majority. But, if you convince all these public school kids that they're evil, they should be, ashamed of themselves because they're just evil colonizers. If you're having interracial family, that's even worse, because now you've got the campus crusaders telling your kids that your dad's an oppressor if he's white and your mom's the oppressed and she's really a slave if she's Hispanic. So we see that happening now, Legalized, this attempt to divide us racially. A lot of people call it cultural Marxism. Instead of money, now it's skin color. But we always see that from the Hobbesian side, trying to divide and conquer. And a lot of people believe exactly that. It is basically another form of Nazism imported to the United States by Operation Paperclip. Google it sometime and learn about the CIA and the OSS and the FBI and how the original guy over Hoover there was blackmailing all the presidents and congressmen, with photographs, videotape, spying on people. He's got, gay images and video, was able to basically compromise all of our presidents, congressmen, senators for years and stay in power. Don't put it past a power-hungry politician to find a way to circumvent the Constitution and get around your rights. So that's what freedom does. Freedom gives criminals the opportunity to violate too. That's why eternal vigilance is the price of freedom. So you guys need to think about that, because the other option is slavery. So let's go here. So BZ Watchdog says we should file a misconduct complaint, or people should. That's probably an option. Let me see here. As a liberal, I have to agree something's definitely going on with our government. Hey, look, man, Bob, okay. A real liberal would be like Hayek, right? A true liberal would be a Thomas Jefferson. These modern liberals are leftists. They are Marxists. They do not support freedom. They do not support the Bill of Rights. They're atheists. By definition, they don't believe in a creator. And once you don't have a creator, you have no more rights. Because remember, if your rights are unalienable under the laws of nature and of nature's God, they can't be taken away by government. That has been the greatest impediment to the Federalists and to the people who want unlimited government control over every aspect of your lives, aka corporations like BlackRock who want to force behavior. Google it. Larry Fink says we have to force behavior. These are the guys who want to have, these Baphomet symbols and satanic symbols on your clothing for your kids to wear at Target. I mean, they've basically shown you their cards. They support the Luciferian system, and their symbolism is everywhere. So you can't deny that. So let's go down through here. This needs more attention. I prefer John Locke. Absolutely. Well, I think anybody who supports natural law is going to support John Locke. I also recommend that you, the leftists here who still think that liberals, that leftists are actually really liberals, because they're not, that you take a look at Adam Smith, Wealth of Nations. I think it's really important for people to learn about laissez-faire capitalism, because what we have now is crony capitalism, and it's corporate-based payoffs and money laundering schemes, sending money over to the Ukraine, and, all their leaders are driving around in Rolls Royces and have, multi-million-dollar homes out of the country. And it's just all money laundering scheme. Money gets back to political candidates here. Part of it pays off their friends in the military industrial complex so they can get more campaign donations. That's what it's really all about. I want people to start thinking for themselves, just like in the Marine Corps. You better start thinking. All right. So, right. Okay. So endocrine disruptors. So that's look, Citizens Broadcasting Cooperative. I would love to have you on the show, because that is happening. They're trying to inject young alpha males with estrogen. They're trying to inject young girls with testosterone, destroy their endocrine system, absolutely sterilizes them. These are permanent effects. I mean, the women, it grows their little thing really long, squares out their jaw, makes their forehead bigger. They grow facial hair. They try to give these guys drugs so they can breastfeed kids. That's child abuse. That's not real mothers. It's freaking disgusting. I mean, this is crazy that we're allowing this to happen to our society. And we saw with the Bud Light thing, it's not popular with the American people. So think about that. We just have to get off our butts and start protesting like the BLM people do. But we don't have the right to burn down cities like they do, because we'll be accused of being racist. So we have to be on our best behavior. We have to be like the Martin Luther King of the 60s, because they're trying to paint us as crazies. So we have to take away that artillery from them. Now, free speech can be obnoxious. Absolutely, Skywalker. And I like obnoxious free speech. That's why I really don't like, censoring these comments, unless it gets really out of control to where we can't manage the show. But yeah, you're right. It should be obnoxious sometimes. You see, in communist China, you get out of line, man, they'll lock you up. I mean, Google helped them create that system. They helped Canada create that same system, and California is trying to do that now. Look at all the cameras. Over 500,000 people just fled California. People with kids, people with sons who don't want their son coming home wearing a dress, they're leaving California because they know it's, a bunch of activist school teachers, and they're trying to force their political and sexual ideology on these children. And a bunch of teachers just sued over that because the schools were forcing them to lie to the parents. And the teacher said, "No way, Jose." But, my thought is just, take away their tax base, leave the state. If they're going to treat parents and traditional Americans who support family values and legal immigration, they're going to try to paint us as racist and all that. Why should we stay? Why should we give money to someone who's telling our kids that their dad's, like a white supremacist or something? It's crazy. So now let's talk about this. So their populist China is GMO'd. That is true. They eat a lot of soy, and we know that soy feminizes men. And a lot of people say that's, well, I'm not going to get into it, but a lot of people say that's why Chinese guys aren't exactly the most masculine guys. I don't know if that's true. I don't even want to go there, but you ladies would know more than I would. But it was a common joke in junior high school and stuff like that. Less than 10 trolls in here. That's good. I guess it means another Christmas with no constitutional law scholar game for my daughter. Well, Internet God, maybe we can work with here's the deal to try to get that board game out. And yeah, Douglas, we could call John Wick. Actually, the guy Taryn Butler builds my Glocks for me, and he's the guy who builds all the John Wick guns. He showed up at one of my dad's, I have the Paul Ehline Memorial Ride we set up for my father. He died from Agent Orange. He was also a Marine, much better Marine than me. He died from Agent Orange exposure. And so, yeah, we had Taryn Butler come out and did a shooting expedition, taught my son how to do CQB. Real cool. So, yeah, I'm all about John Wick. That's cool. Let me see here. Yeah. So, yeah, democracy is literally means mob rules. It's not, the problem with modern day academia is they come up with these new definitions hundreds of years later and try to apply them to the past. And that's not how it works. It's not hermeneutically sound what they're doing. And so democracy basically means rule by the majority. And of course, I believe it was Thomas Jefferson who said democracy is 2 wolves and a sheep showing up for dinner, right? Deciding what's going to be on the menu. And a republic is 2 wolves and a well-armed sheep showing up at dinner. And so what we see here is we absolutely see that the far deep state, the Marxist state, the Leviathanic Hobbesian state wants to disarm you, and they use pretextual reasons like this particular gun needs to be outlawed because it has a bayonet lug and it's black, and therefore that makes it an assault weapon, even though it has the same exact functionality as any semi-automatic centerfire rifle that's been on the market for years. So we know their game that they're playing. Let's take a look here. Skywalker, so true. Clearly, Orem didn't want you to lie. Okay. Whatever that means. Every judge has complaints. That's true. I mean, and why wouldn't they? I mean, if no matter how righteous your judge is, if they lock up one of your family members or your friends, you're naturally not going to like the judge. I'm neutral on the judge. I don't have any issues with the judge. I just think that the case was wrongly decided, and it wasn't based on the evidence. It was based upon ancillary issues like officer safety, and Chille was not a nice guy. And even though, I mean, that's just what it looked like on its face. You're the true court. You're the jury, not me. Let's go here. Michael, can you explain Basil's comment on the screen so we have knowledge? Basil, you're going to have to put that back into the screen because I don't. Yeah, there's so many comments here. And we can also address Basil's comment in tomorrow's or not tomorrow. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Tomorrow, we're not going to have a live cast. Tomorrow, we're going to do nothing. And Basil and I are involved in doing research on these other arrests. So we can do a breakdown of each arrest that was videotaped, and we can give you our 2 cents based upon our knowledge of traffic stops and whatnot, or auditor stops, if you prefer, to try and break down each arrest, especially now that we understand the 21-foot principle better. So we got that. And then it said here, his lawyer literally said freedom of speech is obnoxious behavior. Yeah. Michael, what time were you at court? Yeah, I think we were inside the courtroom probably around 7:30-ish, something like that. And we were all just sitting there on the benches, and we saw the media getting let in. And then the bailiff called up all the people that had active cases. And like I said before, once that line ran out and I was able to talk to the bailiff, he said, oh yeah, that case already was called. Because I was trying to tell him, like, hey, look, I know enough about the law that you generally don't want witnesses in the courtroom until they're called. And of course, I'd called the appellate lawyer to try to tell him that we're going to be there, but yeah, no call back. So there was no coordination with his lawyer. It's amazing that he even said, I know that people are going to show up, because he didn't even make eye contact with any of us when he walked down the hallway. So let me see here. Tom Peters, I gave Chille $400. He wasted it on this lawyer, never grifting. Okay, I don't. So, guy, okay, so when people say things like wasted and all that stuff, like today when the bailiff said, hey, you guys aren't allowed in there because the case has already been decided, one of the people who showed up for Chille said, oh, what a waste of time this was. And like, in my mind, I don't think it was a waste of time, because Chille's going to find out that there were people there for him. That's important. One of his family members saw that people were there supporting Chille. That's important. And we all saw that we had enough integrity to take time out of our day and get yelled at by our wives, you know, if that was the case, when we're not making tons of money, right? To go and fight for a cause that we believe in. Less than 3% of the revolutionaries actually participated in the actual revolution against England. Everybody else just sat on the fence. So all it takes is some people like you to get out there, and you become the journalist, you become the press, and we can change the world, and we can take back the corporate control of this country. Let me just go down through the comments real quick here. So Latito is China oligarch, free Chille. Yeah, do it. Give me a bunch of OTVOs, everybody. Do that. We appreciate your 1488 support. Yeah, support is paramount when you're down. So, hey, Justice all the time, man, I'd love to have you on my show. I had a guy on my show a couple weeks back, or maybe a week or so ago. He's like a volunteer, works for the prison system. And if any of you ever like read the New Testament, check out, I think Acts or Paul and Romans. I think there's quite a few verses about people in prison and how the despair that they go through. And I want all of you to think about that. Like being in prison and being in jail is the most horrible thing in the world, especially when you did something that was nonviolent. There's no reason why he should be in there. So yeah, you're right, man. Everybody, you know, even if you're not religious, pray for the guy for his safety. He's clearly lost a ton of weight. He's miserable. And I know a lot of you people think it's great. And look, I do believe in karma. So I think all of you people should reevaluate how you're thinking, because if one of you guys was down, one of you Chille haters, I'd be the first person there at the courthouse to support you if I felt that you were wrongly convicted. And I'm hoping that by me doing these live casts, that you'll adopt some of my personality characteristics when it comes to being selfless. I know some people say, you know, I only do things because it benefits me. And I tell everybody that. You know, that might be true. I mean, that is one of the principles of capitalism and Adam Smith, but you do things to help other people, not just because it helps you, because it will help you. You do it because it makes you feel good inside that you did something good for someone. And yeah, it usually does come back 7 times 70. And it usually does come back, not all the time, but if you say, oh, that was just a waste of time, that's just bad energy, man. We have no place for that in this fight. We have to be positive. So let me go. And then we have somebody saying one damn super late. Oh, it's okay, man. It's all good. Hey, James Forbes, really praying. Yeah. Say a prayer for Chille, guys. You know, don't be ashamed of believing in your creator and being spiritual. That's what the government wants to do with their school system. You know, oh, that's not science, right? Oh, you don't believe in science? You know, as they're chopping off body parts and emasculating children and injecting them with hormones, that's clearly not scientific. That's a political thing. That's a fetish, and they're forcing it on your children. So just think about that. You know, you don't need to believe anything these guys say. They've proven themselves time and time again to be Baphomet worshipers. They're basically, these are not good people. So the administrative state is not your friend. Remember that. And we're gonna end this in a couple seconds here. Yeah, so police policy enforcement. That's literally what police means. Policy, Policy, policy. All right. Send me a StreamYard link. Mountain Man, I will. If there's a way that you can reach out to me through the michaelehline.com website, that would be way better, because that way we can do comms in advance and kind of talk about how we're going to roll with this. Anybody who can help with encouragement with people who are in prison. Now, not tomorrow, but the next day, we're going to start breaking down these arrest videos of all these auditors. And I'm going to have BZ Watchdog helping me do that. So I think it's really important now that we talk about visitation. We talk about encouragement, finding ways to give comfort to our friends who are locked up and show them that we care about them. Even if you can't give money, your show of support, making a jail visit is super, super important. You have no idea. Being a Marine boot camp, getting a letter from my dad, I mean, that just made my day. Now imagine being in prison. Imagine that. So let me see here. It says here, who comes up to a traffic stop driver interfering with that driver? Well, Michael Collins, you need to read the Constitution and get back to us. Now, Homeschool at any cost. Yeah. So character matters. I agree. That's something that we need to be doing. Right now, my kids are not homeschooled because I don't have the ability to do it. My wife is English as a second language. And so it hasn't been an easy route. But the good news is that I try to stay close to the house, and I debrief my kids. My son's in judo 3-4 days a week. I constantly am involved in activities with my daughter, and I teach them about the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. So they're armed, with the steel of God. They put on that armor so they know. But absolutely, if you can do it, homeschool at any cost. Absolutely. So look, the government's at war with homesteaders right now. So think about that. They're going after the Amish. They're going after homesteaders. Anybody who wants to break away from their GMO, contaminated food, forced injections of experimental substances, you're a conspiracy theorist to them. Those big corporations pay them billions of dollars to make that happen. And they're not going to let go of power quickly when they have a revolving door employment scheme where they're having FBI agents going back and forth from big tech, CIA agents doing the same thing, FDA employees, CDC employees going back and forth from all these big, these big companies that like to put stuff into your body. It's just all just a big scam. And these big companies that do this, they're immune from being sued for the most part, unless you can prove fraud, which is almost impossible. So let's go here. Chille's own family were not. That's not true. Chille's family was there. So Paul, that is complete BS. Let me see here. Shut up. Too tired. Yeah, that's true. His lawyer literally said freedom of speech is obnoxious behavior. So we got all that. It's Scrubzilla. Thanks for kind of helping me out. I mean, these guys are crazy, the comments they make. So the guys they're making these statements, these are false and defamatory statements. I mean, it's just inappropriate. I mean, if somebody's in jail, show a little bit of respect. I mean, this could be your family member. It really could. Everybody's got that guy in their family who's outspoken, at Easter or Christmas. I guess now they call it National Trans Remembrance Day, but it used to be called Easter. Remember that? So let me see here. Yeah, flee California and come to Nevada. Here they treat frauditors and sovsits much better. Well, Tom Peters, I say flee California if you love your children. If you're already there and you want to live under a Marxist Leviathan type system, you're more than welcome to do that. There are some people there like Max Bonilla, these young patriots who are fighting for our rights. I'll share a video that I did with him. There is one that I did on my channel if you want to take a look at it, but real great patriots. He follows Newsom around and asks him questions like, why is it okay to secretly transition children away from their parents? And Newsom really has a hard time answering those questions. Let me see here. Now, Chuck thinks that Chille's run for governor is over. I don't think so. I think that is not true. And let me see. Chille would never do this in a third world country. That's true. Guys, exactly. Chille would never do this in a third world country. But guess what? In a third world country, exactly what happened to Chille would happen. So thank you for that. So guys, I have to go. I guess I'm gonna end this by saying, make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to save, because we never know when the thought police are going to take down this channel. Make sure to save it on your own computer, because once this video gets scrubbed from the internet, and it probably will be scrubbed, we know that already. They don't like stuff like this. We see what's going on in San Bernardino. So everybody, like I said, like, subscribe, save. Free Chille, give you a bunch of OTVOs, and Semper Fidelis.